Artist roles. These are some of the many specialisms for doing artwork in games. So we're now going to talk you through each of the roles and what they involve.
So the first role is environment art. So environment artists usually work from an initial idea or concept, starting with the basic 3D shapes to get a 3D block out of the environment. So from there, you start to replace this block out with more finished and textured pieces to create the finished environments you see in games. So the environment art ranges from creating building kits to props, as well as creating foliage and other key pieces. So the role can also include set dressing, which is essentially bringing together the final scene using all of these models.
Weapon and prop art. Like environment art, when making props and weapons, artists work from concepts or reference and build a 3D model, which they then add materials to. And they consider how dirty or reflective, for example, a surface is, and spend time considering what is needed to make it look more believable and more interesting.
So next is character art. So character artists specialise in modelling and sculpting characters as well as creatures in games. So they typically use a program called ZBrush that you can see being used there in the middle to create the T-Rex and the Hulk, which is essentially like using real clay to create organic shapes, but just digitally. They can also be responsible for creating hair as well as any clothes or accessories that a character might need.
Concept art. As we've mentioned, most games have a concept artist who come on at the start of the project and define the mood and the overall look of the world, character or asset. And they also provide the other artists with details about how each item might look. Working from concepts and having mood boards means that the whole game has a strong look and feel of its own and its own distinct identity.
So after that, we have VFX and Tech Art. So we'll start with VFX, and VFX artists create realistic or fantastical effects in games, from fires to explosions to even spellcasts from a character. So it's usually things that can't be physically modelled and can be created within game engines or an external software and are then imported into a game. So then we have technical artists who act as almost a bridge between the artists and programmers, creating and developing game tools and shaders whilst maintaining the visual quality of the game.
Vehicle art. Similar to environment, props and weapons, vehicle artists model up in a 3D package and then add materials and textures, and they have to consider the surface reflectivity and dirt, etc. They also sometimes get involved in setting up the vehicles in games so that all the parts animate and the vehicle moves believably.
So a UI artist creates the graphic interface for games, from the initial start menus to loading screens, as well as any smaller aspects like on-screen prompts and icons that a game might need. So because it's graphic-based, they tend to use Adobe XD, Photoshop, and also Illustrator.
Next, we want to talk about texture art. A texture artist creates tileable textures in a variety of art styles, from realistic, cartoon, or stylized. Every asset in game will need a texture on it, and how good that texture is can make or break the believability or interest of an object. Sometimes the 3D, the environment artists do their own textures, but some studios have dedicated texture artists, and that's a real specialist skill in itself.
So lastly, we have lighting art. So a lighting artist's role is mainly to set up the lighting of a level in the game engine, and also to help guide the player through a level in a game. So it's really an essential part of making games believable. They're also responsible for the mood of the game by changing both the time of the day and also the types of lights used.
Okay, so that was all the different kind of art specialisms you can have. And now just one final word about the actual software that you might use. So essentially, you just need to learn one piece of 3D software and one piece of texturing software. So for 3D modelling, in industry, generally we use Maya and 3ds Max, but they're quite expensive. So if you're just trying it out and you want to have an experiment, try Blender, because that's for free. Then for texturing or concept artwork, Photoshop is generally the main one that's used in games, and then also Substance Designer and Painter. But again, they cost money. So paint.net is a free alternative if you want to just have an explore and have a play. So try building a model and try texturing it. And then when you've done that, you might want to try and get it actually into a game engine. So some of the game engines the two main game engines that are used generally are Unreal and Unity. And both of these are actually free for use, for personal use. So have a go with those, and you can actually make a prop, bring it into the game engine and have a walk around it and light it and, you know, kind of have a play with that if that's what interests you. Or alternatively, you can look at having a go at sculpting. So rather than just doing a block out model, you can actually sculpt like we're doing the characters and the creatures. So as Eleanor mentioned, ZBrush is generally used for that, or Mudbox. But as an alternative for free, Sculptress is a good one. So if you've enjoyed this video and want to hear more, then our next video, we're going to tell you about a typical day in the life of a games artist, what skills and qualities we look for, and some tips and tricks about how to get a job.